going to start the video with a sigh?
I think we should start with "Should old acquaintance be forgotten?"
That's right. Well, other sites are like painstakingly finding caveats and ways to make their top 20 list not have numbers against the albums. Like, here's just our top 20 favorite albums. Fucking pussies, right? While those people are out there doing that cop-out bullshit, December has just swung into gear and we're already reviewing stuff for next year.
Oh, it's 2025, Duncan. What are you saying? What are you saying?
I mean, wait, give me a sec. Can we hide this Christmas tree? I just keep it up all year round, Dave.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2025. And another year of album reviews from Metal Epidemic.
Is this like, are we pulling a Jules Holland hootenanny here?
Yeah, we are.
Recording
Absolutely
this
are.
months in advance. Yeah, miserable that must be showing up at Jules Holland's fucking studio months before New Year and like just pretending it's New Year. I must be quite surreal because like you get in your, like, you've had a few drinks, boogie to a couple of tracks, you go out and then you start writing 2025 and everything. You're like, damn you, Holland.
So weird.
There we go. Anyway,
we are starting 2025.
Happy New Year
with a review of the new album from Orange County hardcore outfit Stick to Your Guns. The band's new album, Keep Planting Flowers, will be released on January 10th via Sharptone Records. So, Stick to Your Guns, now on Sharptone Records for album number 8. Guitarist Josh James said, over the last few years, we've really stripped Stick to Your Guns down to the simplest and purest form of expression. With the band, we're lucky to have an outlet for everything, whether it be our frustrations, anxieties and problems, or the things we love and care about. It's a beautiful part of life. Throughout 2023, the musicians carefully assembled what would become Keep Planting Flowers, recording with producer Bo Burchell. Everything was just pouring out of us, recalls Josh. The process was seamless because Bo is a great communicator. He was always able to articulate how we could move forward, even if we got stuck. He made sure it went smoothly, had a great input for the melodic elements. He was familiar with us, but he also came from a different world. His perspective was invaluable. In many ways, the album embodies this idea of making yourself and the world around you a better place by not letting the struggle break you. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be beautiful, he leads off. For those who've been truly devoured, keep planting flowers. So, weirdly, considering the number of hardcore releases we've covered, we've never reviewed a Stick to Your Guns album.
Now, why is that?
I don't know. I've been listening to this band since 2010, so it's not like they've not been on the radar. So I don't know. I mean, and they had an album out not that long ago, a few years ago.
So in the life cycle of Metal Epidemic, there has been at least a Stick to Your Guns album, which that's bizarre because you are usually that guy who will. I mean, what do I have here? I have a death metal album, I have a hardcore album. All of a sudden, this hardcore album's rising to the top. Are you, like, there is a reason for years people called you Hardcore Dave.
This is true. But Duncan, that is the past, and this is 2025. So
yes, 2025. That's the year that we're in.
So yeah, Stick to Your Guns are on the review docket, Duncan.
And they're on Sharptone Records, which feels like the smoothest, easiest, like a glove fit ever.
Yes.
Like I've got Ace Ventura just going like a glove in my head. Like that's literally how I feel about this. It's like this is one of these ones that just fucking makes sense.
It does. It makes all the sense, Duncan. So Stick to Your Guns. What can we say? Yes, this is a band I would kind of describe as an anthemic hardcore band. This is a band that you go to see and you'll scream along at the top of your lungs when you go to see them. Very relatable, very authentic, with lyrics that are delivered with like a huge kind of dose of honesty. This is like hardcore that's cathartic. It's it's a release of, you know, whatever is pissing you off, and a chance to get it off your chest. And like this band, they are damn good at what they do. And like you mentioned, like Sharptone there, like if you look at this band's trajectory, it's a really difficult word to say. And
If
all
you're
the kinda,
Scottish, everyone else can say it fine. Cunts.
and all the labels that they've been on, from like they've been on Century Media, they've been on Sumerian, I'm sure they were on Epitaph at a moment as well, and now like landed on Sharptone. Like plus all the touring, all the like they've toured with fucking everybody from Architects to Knock Loose to like Rise Against, Pennywise, all that sort of stuff. And also one of the only hardcore bands, American hardcore bands, to play East Africa as well. So like they've been out there, they've been doing this shit for a long time. They aren't fucking around. And as I said, I got into them about 2010. I think that's when the Hope Division came out. I'm pretty sure it was around that time. But even back then, they were putting out bangers, like back in 2010. And over time, they've just got better at delivering their style and their message. Their earlier stuff was probably, I don't want to say like heavier, because they're still heavy now, but it was more in, how would I put this? It was more in one lane, I would say. Like, and then over time, they've kind of added more melody and, you know, bigger hooks. And their last album, Spectre, was probably one of the most kind of diverse they released. It was like a very, very kind of like broad spectrum of sounds and extremes. But I liked it. I liked the album. I didn't think it was like up there with like some of their best stuff, like the Hope Division or even Diamond, but it's very well rounded as an album. Production was maybe one of the things that I wasn't totally keen on. It was okay, but I've heard their albums sound better. I think it was maybe lacking a little bit of like kind of clarity, I think. But anyway, that doesn't seem to be an issue on Keep Planting Flowers.
No, this is clear as fuck.
Yeah, the production of this is much better. This has a bite to it, like,
oh yes,
especially in the guitars. It's still more produced than say like something they've done like Comes From the Heart or Diamond. But those albums were like, you know, 10 years ago. So they've clearly moved on from that kind of raw sound they had. And to be fair, like I'm not sure those types of productions would work with the sound that Stick to Your Guns have now. This is much, you know, bigger. This is much more anthemic and hook laden. So it needs a production.
It reminds me a lot of the production on that Speed album.
Oh yeah,
which is just like just like super clean, but like it has fucking punch for days.
For sure, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they need a production that will kind of carry the size of their sound they have now, and the production definitely does on this album. Weirdly, although this album is like 10 minutes shorter than Spectre, the previous album, they've like kind of crammed it with as much variety as the previous album. This has like the kind of hardcore ragers, like it's like Spineless, which is the kind of first track after the intro, is like just as you'd expect, like full of like pure venom, sets the energy and the intensity really high. It's got like the breakdowns, it's got the heavy grooves, there's little kind of quick tempos thrown in, and the vocals are just like scorched earth. But and like in the following track, Permanent Dark, it has the same, you know, it's like the same again. It's just like, we'll just keep going. But if you know Stick to Your Guns, you'll know that's not what they're all about. Like, you know, they like to, they're about they're as much about the hook as they are the riff, if you know what I mean. And the album is just as catchy as it is heavy. Even on like the first couple of tracks on the album, there's still like a melodic hook in there as well, which will just kind of grab your ear. Even if it's for just like a few bars that you get on Permanent Dark, where they kind of add in this little kind of like midsection of clean, like almost kind of like post-punk kind of melody into it. There are tracks on the album where you can hear more of the influences and kind of similarities, I suppose, to other bands. Invisible Rain has a big old streak of kind of Rise Against in the chorus. There's a little bit of like Ignite seeps through at times as well. The title track does go a bit heavier on the kind of post-hardcore side, and you get a bit more of a kind of like Being as an Ocean type feel kind of coming off that track. But what I thought was really impressive was how kind of short and to the point these tracks are, but they still really grab your attention and really get into your head. The majority of these tracks are like under 3 minutes, but
Yeah, there's only 3 tracks on this entire album out of 10 songs that run over a 3-minute length,
yeah, yep.
which is kind of remarkable, but also, I'm just going to say, after going through some of the opuses that we have in the last year,
Yeah.
like, you give me a hardcore album which is under 30 minutes, and I will happily say, yes, let's review that next week, Dave. Please, let's do that one.
Yeah. But it kind of shows how good, how clever the songwriting is of this band when you're humming the chorus afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's like the song is like under 3 minutes. I actually really like the kind of more direct side of the band on this album. What I would say is though that the back end of the album is fucking hench. Like after the title track, which is like is a bit more reserved. It's one of those tracks that's just like full of emotion. But after that, you get 3 like absolute bangers, one
and
after
they hit
another.
you with the longest track after Keep Planting Flowers, which like when you're reading, like, once again, I don't do the press, so I read, like, my first introduction to how long this album is, what I might be getting is album artwork, band name, song length. But that's really what I have before I hit play. And I see, like, when I see like the longest track on the album coming in close to the very end, I'm usually like, right, this is going to be maybe a little bit wank. I would say, like, they do finish this off in absolutely spectacular fashion.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things that had I been wearing a cap, I would tip it towards them right now in a gentlemanly fashion.
Yeah. Eats Me Up, absolute banger. Like it's probably for me was one of the best vocal deliveries on the album.
Catchy as fuck.
So good. Like his
Absolutely
vocal is just very like in the right album's in. So and he's had a lot of practice and experience, but he's very confident on this track, especially. I felt, and his melody is like absolutely spot on the track. Thought it was fantastic. There's plenty of those kind of like kind of whoa kind of moments, you know. It's going to get like a kind of crowd participation going. And then the last 2, you've got Who Needs You and Hate for You. Interestingly, they kept the guests on the album to the 2 final tracks,
which I'm not against. I've said this before. I sometimes feel that bands like shoot their load really early by getting all the guests in the first half of the album, and then the back. Like, modern listeners do not listen to albums. It's a shocking indictment on where we are as a society, but that's just not how consumerism and music works. So if you are someone that does the album, like me, I hate bands that front load an album with guest vocals, or guest appearances, because I have to wade through that to get the actual band. You know what the band is actually doing. It's incredibly smart. Who Needs Who is in the Scottish Parliament's a hoof in the balls with a steel toe cap. Holy fucking shit.
You've got none other than Scott Vogel of Terror guesting on the track, and like as you can imagine, it is heavy and fast as fuck. Like just like proper hardcore punk, but with these like kind of dissonant breakdowns included throughout the track, just for that like extra impact. And it's like 54 seconds, and it just absolutely rips you in half. And then Hate for You closes the album, features Connie Scarbosa of See You Space Cowboy, and it's another like just straight for the jugular type track.
The kind of blackened screams in it are fucking insane. Like, so much so that I'm like that. I want an album of that.
I know. Like it could be the kind of heaviest vocal performance overall in the album. As you said, the screams from Connie are just like terrifying. Like it's just wow. She kills it on that track, and it kind of puts like a kind of that feeling of finality on the album when that closes. And I should mention as well that the album does also have like a kind of intro and outro, which is the kind of sound of digging. And I'm assuming that's a kind of reference to the album title of Keep Planting Flowers. But it's a really, I thought it was a really cool way to kind of bookend the album. That was really smart. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Like, as a fan of the band, it's not necessarily an album that will like shock you or like, oh, they've done like a 180 here. There's not that kind of feeling on it. And this is a stick to your guns album. They What they have done is they have kind of stripped back these tracks to kind of like bare necessities. There's like zero excess fat on these tracks, and that's quite refreshing. I found this like a stupidly easy spin, and if you're like a fan of the band, then I'm pretty sure you'll be kind of hooked in instantly. I really enjoyed it. Like, I got a real kick out of this, as a fan of hardcore and the band themselves. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. What about you? What did you think of this?
Confidence. This
Yeah.
exudes like just this is a band that are at the pretty much the highest level of the craft.
Mm,
Like there's a there's a school of thought that when bands release shorter albums later in their career, it's kind of a cheat. It's them using the
mm,
cheat code to get out and tour.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we'll just throw something together and go. I don't care. You know what I mean? We'll give, and less might not necessarily mean more. Stick to Your Guns are that example of seasoned musicians that have kind of weathered the music industry and got to the point where they know exactly what they want to do,
Mm,
and there ain't an ounce of any sort of loose fat here at all. This is an incredibly lean album,
mm,
which packs an incredible punch. It's spontaneous, it's crass, it's vulgar, it's to the point, it's aggressive, but it is laden with some of the most fucking catchy hardcore earworms you're gonna hear this
mm,
year. And it's all underpinned by this fucking incredible production. It just sounds current. Like, if you said to me, right, blind listen to this, and this is a brand new kind of hardcore band out there, I could believe that because it just sounds 2024. It sounds vibrant, it sounds fresh. I mentioned Speed earlier on. Speed, the reason I keep going back to that Speed album is it just feels like someone that really wants to do something now.
mm,
They've got an eye to the past, they've got their influences, but they kind of just want to make it now.
yeah.
Keep Planting Flowers feels now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It has all the technique and the hook of yesteryear, but it's focused in such a way that it understands that people have a million albums to listen to. It's going to be released in a week where probably there's another 50 or 60 albums coming out. And maybe we just consolidate our message down and give it the best version we can.
Mm,
And it works. Not one song here I thought dragged, not one part here that didn't work. Yes, you're right, I don't necessarily think they're reinventing the wheel. But I kind of like bands that are so confident in their sound that they just deliver it straight down the middle. And
mm,
that's not to say there aren't surprises here. There are for sure. The switch ups between tracks are what kind of makes this memorable. No two songs really start the same. And there are moments where, even when the band go off in a kind of more melodic, experimental sort of approach, the vocals never lose that kind of underpinning of hardcore to bring it back, or vice versa. Those huge anthemic choruses are massive enough to keep your attention in. It's a fucking great listen, and it is under 30 minutes, which an album like this should be. And you kind of like when you get to the finality of Hate for You, you kind of just feel very comfortable shoving it back on again.
mm,
It's an album that I think wraps up very, very well how this genre needs to kind of be nowadays. I think if a hardcore band is putting out an album over 35 minutes, it better be fucking exceptional, or they better be doing something
yeah.
that's mind blowing. Otherwise, what they should be doing is this sort of thing, which is the consolidation of a sound, a style, a technique, and a thrust, and then putting it out there.
Mm,
Mentioned the production. I want to come back to it again. Guitars are fucking amazing on this one, and the bass is just fucking perfectly recorded. And you have that punch of the drums, and the guest vocals and the main vocals themselves are all just fucking awesome. So yeah, like I think in a year where we've had some great old school, some new school, some new contenders, and some just downright, because we're looking at you, absolute fucking stank-faced fucking bangers. I think 2025 is looking like it's, it's just going to continue. It's almost as if they pass the fucking Olympic baton to them, and we're just going to keep rolling with it. And I'm kind of down with it. I love the fact that we have so much to choose from in so many different genres, and we're kicking off 2025 with the promise of specialness from the hardcore genre. So this is great.
Nice. Okay, final thing, the score for this new release from Stick to Your Guns. Yeah, I think it's better than the previous album for me. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's quite hitting the levels of what you would class as their kind of classic albums. But I think there's a ton of material on this album that will sound bitchin' live. Like, I think this is where this album will come really into its own on the kind of live scene. For me, it's a 4 out of 5. Very solid, very strong album from Stick to Your Guns. Really enjoyed it. What you thinking?
I'm 100% with you. This is a
Yeah.
big old fat 4. I'll be honest, I've heard stuff of theirs before. I don't think I've ever listened to an entire Stick to Your Guns album.
Okay.
So for me, like, this was a really this is the sort of thing where I'm listening to this going like that. Oh, like, I know they've got other stuff now. I might not sleep on going back on some of that older stuff now, which is, if they're out on Sharptone Records, they're going to be presented to a brand new audience, because that audience for that label is a lot more diverse than your Century Medias or your Sumerians, for example, who kind of have weird lanes of listenership. Sharptone has a huge eclectic range that I think there's a ton of people like myself that are kind of going to be introduced to a first full Stick to Your Guns album, and I think it's just going to raise their profile again and again. So yeah, 4 out of 5.
Nice. Stick to Your Guns, Keep Planting Flowers, out on January 10th via Sharptone Records. Links below to the band, the pre-order, one of the singles. Have a listen, check it out. That is the review. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Happy New Year!